Hey, how's it going, sports bettors? Matt Modi here with OddsJam, and in this video, just going to be giving out a betting preview for the World Series, looking at some Game 1 odds as well. So obviously, unless you've been living under a rock, you know that the World Series is between the Houston Astros and the Philadelphia Phillies. One of these teams is an absolute juggernaut, has been an absolute juggernaut for like 5-6 years now. In the Houston Astros, they won the World Series a couple years ago. They have been runner-ups in the World Series in 2 of the past 3 seasons. The only year in which they didn't go to the World Series was 2 years ago, in which they lost in Game 7 in the ALDS. They have been just one of the elite teams, premier teams in baseball forever. They've also had a huge scandal. Obviously, the cheating scandal that released in 2020 was kind of a huge deal with the Astros, but their player development, the loaded roster that they have, of course, they're back. They also haven't lost a playoff game this entire run. They are 7-0 in the playoffs, and that includes their stud ace, probably going to win Cy Young, Justin Verlander, getting shelled in his first start. They still won that game. The Astros, just among the elite of the elite MLB teams for a while now, going up against a Phillies team that has had a huge payroll pretty much the past 20 years, but haven't prior to this year, had not made the playoffs for the past 11 seasons. The last time we saw the Phillies in the playoffs, they lost in 5 games in the first round. This was before the MLB added a bunch of different games to the St. Louis Cardinals. The last out, Ryan Howard, the Phillies stud, tore his Achilles. It's been downhill for the Phillies ever since. Even this year, the season, as every season, started off with hope. They have talent, but when we look at the roster, you look at their record. It was in June, whenever it was. Didn't have a great team. Then they fired their manager. They fired Joe Girardi. Rob Thompson takes over, and they've been among the best teams in the MLB in terms of wins, losses in that stretch. That stretch also includes a 2-month span in which Bryce Harper missed because of his broken thumb. Now, he finally returned at the end of the regular season, but he couldn't really find his fitting. He couldn't really find his form at the plate. Well, that's all gone because, as you know, Bryce has been incredible, absolutely incredible so far these playoffs. Obviously, he was the MVP of the series against the Padres, of course. The 2-run home run that he hit in the bottom of the 8th is legendary stuff. But when you look at this World Series as a whole, it's not a surprise that the Astros are heavy favorites. They, without question, have the better roster. They have better pitching. The Phillies have 2 absolute aces in Nola and Wheeler. They both have been incredible so far these playoffs. Nola had a rough start in Game 2 against the Padres. Prior to that, had been incredible. But the Astros, they have Christian Javier, they have Justin Verlander, they have Valdez. And then their bullpen, led by Hector Neris, former Philly, is also better than the Phillies. The Phillies really only have 2 bullpen arms that you can really trust, Sir Anthony Dominguez and Jose Alvarado. Other than that, it gets a little dicey. They have Dave Robertson, they have Zach Eflin. And then when you look at the batting, the Phillies' batting has kind of been marked by inconsistency with the potential just to have incredible power. Obviously led by Bryce Harper, led by Kyle Schwarber. Hoskins has been incredibly hit or miss his entire career. He's been hitting so far in the playoffs. He had a 2-run home run in Game 5. He had 2 home runs in Game 4. He's been amazing, but he's hot and cold, so he could just have a series where he can't buy a hit. He's also a liability in the field, which is where the Astros have another advantage, defense. The Phillies have 2 kind of question marks, and they're in their infield at third base in Alex Bohm and first base at Rhys Hoskins. Also, right fielder Nick Castellanos has been great so far in the playoffs. He's made some huge catches, but kind of an adventure in right field. The Astros are just an incredible team. Obviously led by Alvarez as their best hitter, but they have Altuve, they have Bregman, they have just a bunch of loaded hitters up and down the roster. But what I will say is that this Phillies team is peaking at the exact right moment. They swept the Cardinals in their first round 2-0. Both away games, mind you, both away games. In the second round, they beat the World Series runner, or the World Series champ last year, and the Braves beat them 3-1. They split in Atlanta. They won both games in Philly. Then you fast forward to last series against the Padres. Again, they split in San Diego, and then they won all 3 straight in Philly. So the Phillies have yet to lose a home game in the playoffs. The Astros have yet to lose a game in the playoffs. But to me, and people are going to call me a homer because I am a Philly sports fan, I'm riding with the Phillies on this one. I think they're going to win. While the Astros are better, I think that the Phillies, they seem, what we saw the Braves last year, when you can get hot at the end of the year, it can just propel you to a World Series. We also saw it happen with the Nats 2 years ago when they won the World Series, I guess 2019, the last World Series pre-COVID. They got hot. They beat these Astros. And then last year, the Braves also beat these Astros. As good as Verlander is, we've seen him struggle in the playoffs, or excuse me, specifically we've seen him struggle in the World Series, specifically in the World Series, including their last 2 World Series losses. Verlander hasn't pitched well. So he's going to be on the mound in Game 1, as is Aaron Nola. So I'll get to Game 1 odds in just a second. But in terms of my official prediction, I like the Phillies. I think they're going to win in 6. They're going to close it out in Houston. But looking at the odds, the value here is also on the Phillies. And that's part of the reason why I'm riding with them. If you go to OddsJam.com, sports MLB, you can look at futures, World Series winner. It pulls up odds for every sportsbook and what they price the winner of the World Series to be. And we see Caesars prices them at plus 170. FanDuel has them a little bit close, plus 165. Then we see PointsBet, DraftKings, BetRivers below that at plus 160. And then BetMGM is the lowest at plus 155. If you look at the difference between the 2 teams, there really isn't any value on the Astros. DraftKings at minus 185 is the best odds you can get. But then BetRivers is just 1 cent higher at minus 186. And then the other 4 books are just 5 cents higher at minus 190. If you look at the difference in average odds, the sports books pretty much agree on the Astros being between minus 185 and minus 190. There's about a 15-cent gap between MGM and Caesars, what they have the World Series to be at. So I think the value here is on the Phillies to win the World Series. So Phillies plus 170, I think, is a good bet to make for the World Series. Looking at Game 1, obviously we're not surprised that the Astros are favored here. They're at home. They have Verlander on the mound. Really no value on if you bet the money line. The best odds and the best value on the money line is going to be the Phillies at plus 150. But if you compare to the rest of the books, including the sharp ones, BetOnline at plus 147, Bookmaker at plus 141, Pinnacle at plus 146. Not a ton of value there. And then the best odds you're getting on the Astros is minus 156 on Bookmaker, which we use to kind of help give us the true line of what a market should be priced at. So not a ton of value on the Astros money line as well. Looking at the run line, I'm not really touching this. It's too juiced in favor of the Phillies, like the best odds at minus 155, but no value here with Pinnacle at minus 156. And then same thing on the Astros side. Best odds you're getting plus 146 on Bookmaker. So none of the onshore books have a great line here. Where I do think there is some value is on the total going under. Game 1, both aces are going to be pitching. Now, I mentioned that Verlander has struggled in the World Series in his career. Last time he pitched against the Phillies was earlier this year. He didn't give up a hit in 5 innings. So despite his struggles in the World Series, I'm still expecting him to pitch a good game. And on the Phillies side, I'm expecting Nola to pitch a good game as well. I know we had a rough Game 2 against the Padres, but other than that, in the playoffs, he's been absolutely lights out. So I like backing them. Backing this game to go under, backing both of the pitchers, and just look at where the odds are, right? Every book has the total priced at 6.5. Circa prices this total at 7. And a half run is a huge deal in baseball. The difference between 6 and 7 runs is a pretty big deal, obviously. I mean, with numbers that low, that's like a 12% difference between 6 and 7 runs. I don't think anybody would be surprised if one of these teams gets shut out or if it's like a 2-1 game. So the best value in Game 1 is the under 7 runs, minus 122 on Circa. So that is going to be it for my Game 1 prediction and my World Series prediction as well. If you're tailing any of these bets, let me know. I'd love to hear it. comment on the video with feedback, but that is it. So I appreciate you guys watching, and have a good one.